In 1909, you could ambulate into any apothecary within America, within Britain, within France, within Germany, within Russia, and discover repositories saturated with desiccated botanical matter that executed phenomena modern medicine still cannot execute. Cannabis tincture for migraines, coca leaf for exhaustion, opium for respiratory distress, belladonna for asthmatic episodes, henbane for sleeplessness, lobelia for respiration, foxglove for cardiac conditions, strychnine within minuscule quantities for neural function, white willow bark for pyrexia, black cohosh for women within labor, calamus root for digestion, yerba santa for pulmonary architecture, pleurisy root, blue cohosh, mandrake, jimsonweed, ergot peyote. They resided within vitreous receptacles possessing handwritten Latin designations, merchandised by the ounce, prescribed by physicians who had examined them for 3 decades. By 1930, virtually every one of them had been extinguished, not because they ceased functioning, not because they terminated individuals, but because a solitary document, compensated for by a solitary foundation, determined that they did not belong within the novel medicine. The document was designated the Flexner Report. It constitutes the document that constructed the universe you inhabit, and the narrative of what it erased constitutes one of the strangest acts of oblivion within human history. Permit us to ambulate into that pre-910 apothecary conjointly. The aroma contacts you initially. Desiccated sage, pulverized eucalyptus, the metallic sharpness of desiccated bloodroot, the saccharine decay of valerian, the composed menthol of pennyroyal. Behind the counter stands a man within an elongated apron, frequently designated an apothecary, occasionally designated a chemist, occasionally designated a druggist. He is not a clerk. He has trained for years, occasionally a decade, occasionally more. He recognizes how to interpret a Latin prescription, how to quantify grains and drachs, how to compound an unguent anterior to you while you pause. The barriers are lined possessing hundreds of modest wooden repositories, each one designated possessing the Latin botanical designation of what resides within. Atropa belladonna, Heoscamus niger, Conium maculatum, Cannabis indica digitalis purpura. Superior to the repositories reside rows of porcelain receptacles, azure and ivory, sustaining tinctures and elixirs that the apothecary fabricated himself from raw botanical matter he ordered from. Suppliers who in turn ordered from agriculturalists who in turn cultivated the plants upon dedicated medicinal parcels. This was not a peripheral commerce. This constituted the complete medical apparatus of the Western world. The United States Pharmacopoeia, the official governance volume of sanctioned pharmaceutical agents, enumerated over 1,000 plant medicines within its 1890 edition. The British Pharmacopoeia enumerated comparable numerals. Every physician within every nation acquired them. Medical institutions expended years instructing their pupils how to identify, prepare, dose, and amalgamate these botanical substances. A graduate of Harvard Medical School in 1890 recognized the distinction between 40 classifications of mint. He could articulate toward you which one composed a gastric region, which one unsealed a thoracic cavity, which one diminished a pyrexia. He recognized that opium operated upon the intestinal architecture within one configuration and upon the pulmonary architecture within another. He recognized how to deploy mercury, antimony, arsenic within diminutive quantities for specific conditions. And he recognized the boundary between medicine and toxic substance constituted a matter of milligrams. This universe was not flawless. Individuals perished from deficient dosages. Individuals transformed independent upon opium and morphine. Individuals acquired patent medicines, those pigmented syrups merchandised by itinerant vendors, possessing assertions of remedying everything from alopecia to tuberculosis. And numerous of those medicines were fraudulent. There existed authentic causation for reformation. Anyone who articulates toward you the pre-1910 medical universe constituted paradise is fabricating. Children perished of diphtheria. Women perished within childbirth. Tuberculosis terminated millions. Surgical intervention was still primitive. Antibiotics did not exist. But within that imperfect universe, there existed a colossal knowledge foundation of plant medicine that had been refined across thousands of years, evaluated generation by generation, and integrated within the formal medical apparatus of the complete Western world. Then arrived the Flexner Report. Abraham Flexner was not a physician. He constituted a scholastic instructor from Louisville, Kentucky. He possessed a bachelor's degree from Johns Hopkins. He had operated a modest private institution. He was 43 years of age when the Carnegie Foundation engaged him in 1908 to inspect the medical institutions of the United States and Canada. There existed 155 of them at that interval. They extended from colossal university medical facilities possessing hundreds of faculty toward modest proprietary institutions operated by a handful of physicians superior to an apothecary. They instructed wildly distinct phenomena. Certain instructed surgery and chemistry. Certain instructed homeopathy. Certain instructed eclectic medicine, which deployed American Indian plant traditions amalgamated with European botanical knowledge. Certain instructed osteopathy. Certain instructed naturopathy. Certain instructed what was then designated regular medicine, signifying the European pharmaceutical tradition. It constituted a chaotic, varied, competitive ecosystem. Flexner visited each institution across the trajectory of approximately 18 months. He expended upon average a diurnal cycle and a half at each one. He examined libraries, laboratories, instructional chambers, medical facility affiliations. He published his document in 1910 beneath the designation Medical Education in the United States and Canada. It extended toward 346 pages, and it recommended within plain terminology that the colossal majority of those medical institutions be terminated, not reformed, terminated. Eclectic institutions, homeopathic institutions, institutions that instructed plant medicine alongside surgery, institutions that admitted women and black pupils, institutions that served rural communities, all of them targeted. The document possessed authority because of who compensated for it. The Carnegie Foundation financed the inspection. The Rockefeller Foundation financed the implementation. Conjointly, these two foundations governed more philanthropic capital than the federal budget of the United States at that interval. When they determined that American medicine would be reconstructed within a solitary model, the model they selected was the laboratory model of Johns Hopkins University, which was itself founded upon the German pharmaceutical research tradition. That tradition prioritized synthesized chemicals over plant extracts. It prioritized double-blind trials over centuries of clinical observation. It prioritized hospital-based instruction over apprenticeship. And it prioritized standardized molecules over the complex, variable, arduous-to-patent compounds you discover within authentic plants. By 1920, of the 155 institutions Flexner inspected, more than half been sealed. Within 20 years, all the eclectic institutions were extinguished. Virtually all the homeopathic institutions were extinguished. The numeral of medical institutions admitting women collapsed. The numeral of medical institutions admitting black pupils descended from 7 toward 2. The American Medical Association, which had partnered with Flexner from the commencement, transformed into the gatekeeper of who could practice medicine and what they could practice. And the United States Pharmacopoeia commenced a steady decade-by-decade extraction of plant medicines from its official enumeration. Cannabis was extracted in 1942. Coca was extracted earlier. Opium poppy preparations were substantially constrained. By 1950, the apothecary of 1909 no longer existed within any recognizable configuration. This is where the narrative transforms uncomfortable, because the Rockefeller Foundation was not a neutral philanthropic entity. John D. Rockefeller had constructed Standard Oil into the most substantial industrial empire within history. The byproducts of petroleum refinement, the residual hydrocarbons that emerged from the distillation procedure, constituted the raw material for an entirely novel industry. That industry was synthetic pharmaceuticals. Aspirin originated from coal tar. Sulfa pharmaceutical agents originated from coal tar derivatives. The inaugural plastics, the inaugural dyes, the inaugural synthetic pharmaceutical agents, all originated from the identical petrochemical waste stream that Standard Oil governed. If American medicine could be redirected away from plants and toward synthetic compounds, the individuals who govern the petrochemical industry would additionally govern the medical industry. This is not conjecture. This constitutes a matter of corporate documentation, of investment currents, of patent submissions, of equity. You cannot patent a plant. You cannot patent willow bark. You can patent acetylsalicylic acid, the synthetic iteration of willow bark, and designate it aspirin and levy whatever compensation you desire for it. You cannot patent cannabis. You can patent a synthetic cannabinoid molecule. You cannot patent foxglove. You can patent digoxin, the isolated active constituent of foxglove. The patent is consistent across the complete pharmacopoeia. The plants were never disproved. They were unpatentable. And so they were gradually displaced from medical education, from apothecary licensing, from insurance compensation, from physician instruction, until 2 generations subsequently virtually no one within the medical apparatus recognized how to deploy them any longer. Now, here is where the more profound stratum commences, the stratum that overlaps with the more ancient chronicles that receive designation as Tartarian or pre-fire inquiries. Because if you examine the medical encyclopedias from the 1870s and 1880s, the volumes that physicians transported within their black leather satchels, you discover references toward a corpus of plant knowledge that was already regarded as ancient at that interval. The American eclectic physicians of the 1860s inscribed that they had acquired substantial portions of their materia medica from more ancient European traditions that themselves trace backward through monasteries, through Arabic physicians, through Roman herbalists, through Greek temple healers, and backward into a vapor that they themselves could not perceive through. The plants they deployed possessed designations within Sanskrit, within Old Persian, within Old Chinese, within Latin, within Greek, within Gaelic. The identical plants, the identical applications, the identical dosages across thousands of miles and thousands of years. Foxglove for the cardiac organ in Ireland. Foxglove for the cardiac organ in China. Henbane for the pulmonary architecture in Egypt. Henbane for the pulmonary architecture in Germany. Coca for orcussion within the Andes. Cut for exhaustion within Yemen. A distinct plant possessing comparable effects. The world possessed a shared botanical pharmacology, and it possessed it long preceding anyone inscribed where it originated. You examine those antiquated materia medica volumes, and you commence to register as though you are examining the fragments of a substantially more extensive apparatus. An apparatus that possessed magnificent botanical gardens affixed toward every significant municipality. An apparatus that preserved dedicated medicinal agricultural operations possessing hundreds of acres of meticulously cultivated herbs. An apparatus where every village possessed a wise woman or a wise man who recognized the local plants. An apparatus where physicians within Bologna corresponded with physicians within Damascus and physicians within Lhasa regarding the identical compounds. An apparatus that within numerous regions of the world was already diminishing by the interval photography, commenced to document it within the 1860s. There existed antiquated photographic captures from the 1900s exhibiting botanical gardens within locations such as St. Petersburg, Vienna, Padua, Edinburgh, Calcutta, possessing colossal vitreous structures, marble columns, intricate pathways, and collections of medicinal plants from every continent. Numerous of these gardens predated the municipalities encircling them by hundreds of years. The Padua Botanical Garden, founded in 1545, still exists, but 1,000 alternative gardens resembling it were forfeited. Certain incinerated, certain were paved across, certain were converted toward parks. The plants they sustained, the meticulous crossbreedings, the accumulated knowledge of which strain operated most proficiently for which condition, all of it dispersed or obliterated. The pre-1910 apothecary constituted the inheritor of this. The receptacles upon his shelf transported Latin designations because Latin constituted the universal scholarly language of an apparatus that had once extended from Spain toward Korea. The grains and drachms he quantified within originated from Roman weights. The very configuration of the apothecary receptacle, the porcelain, azure, and ivory, originated from Chinese porcelain traditions imported through Persian and Italian merchants. Every element of that apothecary transported the trace of an older, more extensive network of medicine that had been operating within some configuration for at minimum 2,000 years. And subsequently, within a solitary generation between 1910 and 1940, it was demolished. Contemplate what was forfeited. Cannabis constituted a standard medicine for migraine, for menstrual discomfort, for slumber, for nausea. American physicians prescribed it absent controversy from 1850 onward. The Eli Lilly Corporation merchandised cannabis tincture by the gallon. The Parke-Davis Corporation merchandised cannabis cigarettes for asthma. By 1937, the Marijuana Tax Act rendered it virtually impossible to prescribe. By 1970, the Controlled Substances Act rendered it federally illicit even to examine. 60 years of suppression succeeded, throughout which generations of physicians acquired nothing regarding a plant that their great-grandfathers had deployed every week. Coca constituted a standard remedy for exhaustion, for altitude pathology, for digestive complications. Coca wine was merchandised by every European apothecary. Coca-Cola itself commenced as an apothecary product merchandised from soda fountains as a tonic. The leaf, masticated or infused as tea, has been deployed within the Andes for thousands of years absent generating dependency. It was the isolation of cocaine, the patented purified molecule, that generated the dependency complication. The plant itself was not the peril. The corporate refinement of the plant was. But when prohibition arrived, it prohibited the leaf alongside the molecule, and so the secure traditional application was eliminated alongside the perilous concentrated extract. Opium constituted the most formidable discomfort alleviation medicine ever discovered, within tincture configuration designated laudanum. It was merchandised across the counter within every American apothecary until 1906. Women deployed it for menstrual contractions. Soldiers deployed it for conflict wounds. Aged men deployed it for articular inflammation. It was addictive affirmatively, but it was additionally extraordinarily efficacious. And the dependency it generated within moderate medical application constituted a fraction of the dependency generated by the modern synthetic opioids that supplanted it. The poppy plant itself is resilient, cultivates within numerous climates, costs virtually nothing to cultivate. Contrast that toward the modern opioid industry, which generates tens of billions of dollars annually merchandising patented synthetic iterations of the identical molecule possessing colossally more severe outcomes for dependents and perishing patients. The plant was outlawed, the tablet was promoted. The outcome constitutes the opioid crisis. Foxglove extended us digitalis, the cardiac medicine. The plant itself, within meticulously desiccated and dosed configuration, was prescribed by rural physicians for 200 years. The synthetic isolated iteration, digoxin, possesses a constricted therapeutic window, an elevated toxicity hazard, and is being phased outward within modern cardiology. The plant was more forgiving than the molecule. The plant possessed supplementary compounds that buffered the perilous effects. But the plant was unpatentable. So, the molecule prevailed. The enumeration persists. Lobelia, deployed for respiration complications, has been propelled outward from medical application even though no synthetic replacement has equaled its effects. Golden seal, deployed for infections, was deployed by every American physician in 1890, virtually no American physician today. Slippery elm for pharyngeal discomfort. Marshmallow root for digestive lining. Mullein for pulmonary architecture. Plantain leaf for wounds. Comfrey for fractured osseous architecture. Every one of these plants possesses thousands of years of documented application. And every one of them is presently merchandised exclusively within diminutive health nourishment establishment by individuals regarded as peripheral. The Flexner Report did not directly prohibit any of these plants. That is not how it operated. What it executed was reconstruct medical education upon a model that possessed no location for them. Novel physicians did not acquire how to deploy them. Novel apothecaries did not stock them. Novel textbooks did not reference them. Insurance corporations did not compensate for them. Governance regulators generated barriers that rendered them legally perilous to prescribe. Within 30 years, a complete branch of medicine that had been mainstream for thousands of years was extinguished, and the physicians trained within the novel apparatus did not even recognize what was absent. They had been instructed that the antiquated configuration constituted unscientific superstition. They possessed no animate instructors who could exhibit toward them otherwise. This constitutes the peculiar and horrific component. The knowledge was not obliterated by force within the majority of instances. It was obliterated by a generation simply not being instructed. The concluding eclectic medical school within America, the Eclectic Medical Institute of Cincinnati, sealed in 1939. With it departed the concluding formal instruction within American botanical medicine. The libraries proceeded toward private collectors. The professors retired. Their pupils entered alternative professions. Within 20 years, no one within mainstream medicine retained memory of how to compound a cannabis tincture or quantify the appropriate dosage of belladonna for an asthmatic episode. The chain of transmission was fractured within a solitary generation. What ascended within its position was the modern pharmaceutical industry. The Rockefeller Foundation persisted in financing medical institutions, but exclusively those that instructed the novel model. By 1850, a physician who desired to graduate from any significant American medical institution was compelled to acquire knowledge regarding synthetic pharmaceutical agents, regarding petroleum-derived compounds, regarding laboratory chemistry. He acquired nothing regarding plants. By 1970, prescribing an herbal medicine could cost a physician his authorization. By 2000, the American medical apparatus expended more currency upon pharmaceutical agents per individual than any nation within history, while positioning proximate to the foundation of developed nations for authentic health outcomes. This constitutes the apparatus the Flexner Report constructed. It constitutes the apparatus you inhabit today. It has generated authentic marvels: antibiotics, insulin synthesis, cancer chemotherapy, surgical anesthesia. Authentic triumphs that the antiquated apothecary apparatus could not have generated. No one disputes this. But it has additionally generated an epidemic of chronic pathology, of dependency, of iatrogenic injury, of interventions that conceal symptoms while generating novel dependencies. And it has executed all this while the more ancient knowledge resides within particulate-laden volumes upon library surfaces, anticipating someone to retain memory of it. Certain fragments of that retention are commencing. Within the preceding decade, cannabis has been partially restored toward medicine, though not within plant configuration. Psilocybin, discovered within fungi deployed by indigenous healers for thousands of years, is presently being examined for depression. Ketamine, a synthetic relative of more ancient anesthetics, is being deployed for trauma. Researchers are examining again at ergot derivatives and at peyote alkaloids. At compounds within plants, the Flexner Report eliminated from the curriculum. But the rediscovery is transpiring within fragments, through pharmaceutical patents, through corporate research grants. The plants themselves still cannot be prescribed within their original configuration by the majority of physicians. There exist still locations where the antiquated knowledge endured. The German pharmaceutical tradition, despite generating aspirin and morphine, never completely abandoned its plant foundations. German apothecaries today still transport hundreds of botanical preparations that no American apothecary would recognize. French herbalists, designated herbaristas, were authorized until 1941, when the Vichy governance abolished the profession, and the prohibition has never been elevated. Within Switzerland, within Austria, within pockets of Eastern Europe, the antiquated tradition persists. Within India, the Ayurvedic tradition possesses its own enduring plant pharmacy. Within China, traditional medicine was virtually obliterated by the Cultural Revolution, but has subsequently been reconstructed. The Tibetan medical tradition was dispersed when China invaded, but has been reconstituted within exile within India. Every one of these enduring traditions indicates backward toward something more ancient, toward a network of plant knowledge that was once distributed across the complete Eurasian landmass and beyond, toward gardens that were preserved for centuries, toward physicians who corresponded across boundaries, toward monasteries and temples and lodges that preserved inscribed documentation of which plants executed what? Toward a universe that was already diminishing by the interval the Flexner Report was commissioned, but had not yet been completely erased. The pre-1910 apothecary, the one possessing the Latin designations and the porcelain receptacles, constituted the concluding visible expression of that more ancient universe within mainstream Western existence. He was already a remnant from an apparatus that was perishing. His grandfather had likely instructed him within compounds that were already regarded as antiquated within the 1870s. The Flexner Report constituted the mortality certification, not the causation of death. The causation of death was the ascension of an industrial pharmaceutical model that necessitated unpatentable plants displaced from the trajectory, so that patentable molecules could assume their position. And so when you ambulate through a modern apothecary today, examine what resides upon the surfaces: synthetic acetaminophen rather than willow bark, synthetic dextromethorphan rather than mullein and pleurisy root, synthetic loperamide rather than blackberry root, synthetic antihistamines rather than butterbur and nettle. Every plant has been supplanted by a chemical analog that someone possesses. The plants still cultivate within fields and forests around the planet, the identical plants that restored individuals for thousands of years. They are exclusively not within the apothecary any longer. They are not within the physician's office. They are not within the medical institution. They were extracted, one document at a time, one institution closure at a time, one curriculum revision at a time, by individuals who comprehended precisely what they were executing. The Flexner Report is publicly accessible. You can interpret all 346 pages digitally. It does not conceal what it intends. It articulates openly that the objective is to consolidate medical education beneath a solitary model, to seal institutions that instruct competing traditions, to professionalize physicians as employees of substantial institutions, and to align American medicine with German laboratory science. It articulates all of this within plain terminology. The genius of the operation was not secrecy. The genius was that it succeeded so entirely that within 50 years no one retained memory there had ever been an alternative trajectory. The plants are still present, they still cultivate. Cannabis still cultivates wild within numerous states. Foxglove still cultivates within antiquated English gardens. Coca still cultivates upon the inclines of the Andes. Poppies still cultivate within fields within Afghanistan and Turkey. Henbane still cultivates by the thoroughfare margins of Europe. Mullen, plantain, comfrey, slippery elm, golden seal, every one of them still cultivates. The knowledge of how to deploy them endures within antiquated volumes, within enduring traditions, within the recollections of grandmothers within remote villages, within the practices of indigenous healers who were never imported into the apparatus that erased them. What was forfeited was not the plants. What was forfeited was the integration, the apparatus that connected the plants toward the physicians, toward the patients, toward the apothecaries, toward the institutions, toward the universities, toward the volumes, toward the chronicle. That apparatus was dismantled deliberately by individuals who profited from the dismantling, and supplanted with an apparatus that profits from a distinct classification of medicine, whether that novel medicine constitutes superior or inferior toward what preceded it, constitutes an inquiry that depends upon what you quantify. If you quantify infectious pathology fatalities, the novel medicine prevails. If you quantify chronic pathology, cognitive illness, dependency, autoimmune disorders, infertility, all the phenomena that did not exist or were uncommon preceding 1910, the response is less unambiguous. If you quantify the breadth of human medical knowledge, the novel apparatus constitutes a desert compared toward the forest that preceded it. The Flexner Report was published in 1910. The apparatus it constructed is over a century aged. It is commencing to fracture. Individuals are examining backward. They are interpreting the antiquated materia medica. They are cultivating the antiquated plants. They are rediscovering compounds that were never enhanced upon. Whether the antiquated apparatus can be restored is unknown. Whether the novel apparatus can be reformed is unknown. But the narrative of how the alteration transpired, of who executed it happened, and why is no longer a secret. It is positioned within plain visibility, within 346 pages, within a document you can interpret this nocturnal interval if you desire to. There exists one additional fragment of this narrative that virtually no one articulates: the volume incinerations. Not literal incinerations within the majority of instances, though certain did transpire, but systematic extractions. When the eclectic medical institutions sealed, their libraries were compelled to proceed somewhere. The Eclectic Medical Institute of Cincinnati sustained one of the magnificent collections of botanical pharmacology within the Western world. Tens of thousands of volumes, first edition copies of the King's American Dispensatory, the standard reference work of American plant medicine, manuscript annotations from physicians who had treated patients for 40 years, correspondence with botanists across the planet, original plant specimens pressed and designated within the 1800s. When the institution sealed in 1939, the majority of that collection was simply discarded. Local historians have estimated that less than 10% endures within any configuration today. The identical phenomenon transpired at homeopathic institutions, at women's medical colleges, at the black medical institutions that Flexner specifically recommended for closure. Libraries that had necessitated half a century to construct were dispersed within weeks. A comparable ratio transpired toward the catalogs of the magnificent American apothecary supply establishments. Corporations such as Lloyd Brothers, Parke Davis, Eli Lilly, Squibb commenced as compounders of plant medicines. Their early catalogs from the 1870s through the 1910s constitute extraordinary documents. They enumerate hundreds of botanical preparations possessing specifications for plant origin, harvest interval, desiccation methodology, extraction solvent, concentration ratio, dosage for adults, dosage for children, and recognized interactions. After 920, those catalogs contract steadily. By 950, the identical corporations are merchandising virtually exclusively synthetic compounds. The botanical divisions were dismantled. The senior compounders retired. The specialized equipment, the percolators, the maceration reservoirs, the desiccation chambers, was scrapped or repurposed. A complete industrial infrastructure of plant medicine evaporated. The Sears Roebuck catalog for 1902 extends a peculiar aperture into what was once conventional. You could order by postal service, dispatched toward your agricultural habitation anywhere within America. Opium tincture for 10 cents per ounce, cannabis extract for 15 cents, cocaine drops for dental discomfort, belladonna plaster, quinine. The catalog presumed the head of the household could interpret a Latin designation and adhere to a dosing instruction. This was conventional in 1902. It would be inconceivable today, not because individuals have grown less capable, but because the apparatus that instructed such literacy has been dismantled. That constitutes what resided upon the surfaces preceding 1910. That constitutes who extracted them. That constitutes why they have not returned. Healing plants every apothecary merchandised, and the document that prohibited them all is not a conspiracy theory. It constitutes documented corporate chronicle. The exclusive enigma remaining is why there exist so sparse individuals who appear to recognize.